Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parasha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet in Highland Park, New Jersey, the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation Anshe Emet. Joining me are good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Schechter, Day School of Long Island, Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanofsky, Anshe Chesed, New York City. Rabbi Kalmanofsky coming off of the week of Shiva. This is Shiva plus a few days now. We wish you our condolences. We sent our comfort to you when we were in the missing man formation last week. Barry and I, we recorded just without you. We were thinking of you. We had been, of course, shared the moments with you and remembering and offering comfort to you on the loss of your father. You
Thank
want to
you.
say a word?
Sure. Thank you so much. First of all, I missed 2 weeks because
Yeah.
he was Goseis before the Shiva week. He was near to death. Thank you guys for coming to the funeral and to the Shiva. Thank our fearless leader Mitch Mernick, who helps us so much with
Amen.
these for coming to visit, and Eitan Kenter from Camper on the Berkshires,
Berkshires.
away from home. Moshe David Ben Tzvi Kohen, the Pessia Reza, he is a devoted listener. He loved every opportunity to study Torah and to be part of the discourse of Torah. And he was a devoted listener to Parsha Talk. And so I'm happy to dedicate the little Torah learning, the Zecher Avimari.
You
Amen.
know, when we learned that he was one of our loyal fans, it really made it was very special. And of course, we honor all of our fans, and we're missing him. We're missing the opportunity. It was so interesting. At the Shiva, I met your mother, and she said, "Where do I know you from? Where do I know you?" I said, "You watch me every week." Oh yeah,
So you know that I have another funeral tomorrow, by the way,
yeah.
for someone who, this is a very interesting person who, among her other, parts of her story life is, when she was in her, uh, you know, 7 and 8 and 9 years old, I guess a little bit, maybe a little bit older. She was running through Belgium and France to escape the Nazis, and ultimately made it to the United States, and just passed away this week. But she, when she was, somewhat older, she had a good traditional background, and she had a Parshat Shavua group for her friends, and it lasted for many years, and in San Diego, California, and my father at Ann's Choice, the independent living facility, he had Parshat Shavua, and we helped him out with lots of
I
ideas.
mean, no, you never know, and that's just the beauty of this. That we're very humbled by that, and it's so gratifying to know that in some way, even for a few minutes, we're part of people's lives, and we appreciate that and honor everyone who's listening to us. We are also thinking about Ran Gvili, the last hostage whose remains are in Gaza. We're in the 837th day or so of the war. We really stopped counting days because we just don't. We're in this kind of zone. But thinking about that and hoping for his repatriation to Israel, and lots of things to think about. They take about our emotional bandwidth. But let's think about the parsha, because the parsha, you know what, the parsha has
Let's
emotional.
come to the parsha.
It
We'll come
has
to the
it
parsha.
has emotional bandwidth. Bo el Paro. That's your pun on go to Pharaoh, or come to Pharaoh. Um, both of you, as we began thinking about it, said this is one of your favorite parshas. I also chimed in on that. Barry, why is your favorite parsha? What's good about this parsha, just in general?
So I guess what's good about it is that this is the greatest story ever told. This is the
Yeah.
Exodus in its two versions: Pesach Mitzrayim, the Exodus, the Passover in Egypt, and then Pesach Ledorot, how the Bnei Israel are going to remember it and live through it each year at the same time. And so it's one of the chapters that we read in its entirety twice a year if we are on the traditional annual Torah reading, because the first 20 verses are read on Shabbat HaChodesh, the Shabbat either coinciding with Rosh Chodesh Nisan or just before, and on the first day of Pesach when we read the last 31 verses.
Jeremy, I turn
And
to you. Why? Well, go tell us why you like the parsha.
So the stories about the ancestors are incredible and moving and deep, and they layer major themes. Beginning with Exodus chapter 12, you have something new. You have religion. You have
Interesting.
communal shared practice. You have norms. You have behaviors that we will do and share together, which asher kitshanu v'mitzvotav, which add holiness, which imbue our life with holiness, because it's through these practices, and so that we get the first mitzvot and come in chapter 12. You have a calendar. Here's how you celebrate Passover. We will have additional in chapter 13. We will have additional mitzvot about that we will take to be mitzvot. The rabbis will interpret to be mitzvot about tefillin, and all these things are about communal practice by which we take these ancient stories, these stories that by the time the Torah comes, they're already like part of hoary antiquity, and we make them our lives through shared practice.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
So while I was reading through, so in the Parsha, I believe Pesach is referred to as a Chag, which seems kind of odd because, in its origin, it was a home ritual. That's what's described in chapter 12. So is that suggests that the passage comes from a much later time? Or was Chag not used as precisely in all the levels of Israelite society?
What is Chag? What is? I mean, I don't really know.
Chapter 12, verse 14. Vayah yom hazeh elachem zikaron. This day shall be a day of memorial. V'chagotem oto chag ladonai ledorotechem. You shall celebrate this as a chag, hajj, to God for your generations. It will be So what you're saying is that there are so many layers of text here, and that makes the parsha somewhat complicated. That there are things coming from different strata, and Passover itself, if you look at the Tanakh, certainly, and it has different iterations throughout the history of Tanakh as it does throughout Judaism.
I'm just gonna first of all, I'm gonna note as we're talking, I'm just looking at some Mefarshim. Ibn Ezra says on this phrase, Chagotem otam hu Chag Pesach. It's described as the festival of Passover, and it is said for all your generations. It doesn't say in all your habitations. All your generations, yes, temporally it's for all time. But it doesn't say in all locations. It actually, the full ritual has to be practiced in the holy place. This is a pure guess. Please tell me if it makes no sense to you or among our many listeners with excellent Hebrew philology, but is Chag and Ug, Ayin and Chet are both guttural letters. Is Chag and Ug, which are circle, are they both circle words? Or in other words, is a festival because it means that people get together in a circle, and we the circle of the family does this, or something like that. Maybe there's
nice.
another.
I'll take it as a homily. I'll take it for a sermon value. Nice, but what both of you are saying is that it's a continuity. We can read this chapter 12 at least, and of course everything leading up, and really say, we're doing something like this when we assemble at the Seder. We are reenacting this at the Seder. We are reenacting aspects of the preparation, aspects of the mitzvot, of the matzah and the meal, etc. And it's all from chapter 12, and we are telling the story also of what happened in this night. And I would say also, I wanted to answer the question why I like this parsha. I like this parsha for all those reasons, and if we're going to focus on chapter 12, I like the when it says v'yichulahem ish selavet avot selabayit. I know we've talked about this before. This is the reconstitution of family in the setting of slavery and servitude, which is all about breaking the family and reestablishing different kinds of authority. Servitude is the authority of the state or the sovereign or the oppressor over you, and Pesach on the core level of family commemoration is to reconstitute the family. This was a line Rabbi Eliezer Diamond, Alav Shalom, he gave that in a small Dvar Torah. I remember it, and when I come to this chapter, I think about what he says, and I, of course, remember him now, but think that this is so true in the sense that Passover represents at the very core the structure of the family, and the structure of the family is an undermining of political state authority, and the family stands outside certain kinds of other authoritative structures. When you think about it, rabbis and rabbinic culture is also in conflict with the family, because when you have when you are challenged by who do you respect first, you respect your parent or your rabbi. The tradition says you respect your teacher, your rabbi, because both your parent and you are obligated. And in some ways, rabbinic authority undermines the family. So
we do have, of course, a very famous passage in Tractate Ketubot about, this is where we know the stories about Rabbi Akiva, in instantiating exactly what you just said. Like they leave their wives for years at a time to go study Torah. They leave the culture of domestic life and presumably, sexual life and reproduction and stuff for the circumscribed circle of Torah study, and that is presented as a tension. However, there's a passage in the Christian scriptures. You got me where I don't. Blessedly, I don't really know the Christian scriptures, but Jesus says something like every person should reject his parents and his family and come follow me, and that's like very explicit. And we as a general rule, I agree with you very much, try to reconstitute through the family, a healthy Am Yisrael of genealogies and parents and children and the infinite mitzvah of kibud av v'em. Just real quick on one small thing about when the holiday cycle is recounted in Deuteronomy, and in Deuteronomy is really, really, really concerned with pilgrimage, is really, really, really concerned with one sacred site, not local altars, and it reminds the people, as that Ibn Ezra quotation that I just said, this is not everywhere. This is the holy place, and it says in Deuteronomy 16, "Lo tuchal lizboach et hapasach be'echad sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach." You cannot offer the Passover sacrifices in any of the gates which the Lord gives you, ki'im el hamakom, except the place asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha l'shaken shmo sham, the place that that the Lord God has chosen to make His name. Sham tizbach da Pesach ba'erev. There's where you offer the Passover sacrifice, Kivo Hashemesh Moed Seitcha Mitzrayim, when the sun sets at the season of the year when you left Egypt. So there's a great little drash, a great little rabbinic homily on Lo Tizboach et HaPesach be'echad she'arecha. They put a period after the word echad. Lo Tizboach, Lo Tuchal Lizboach et HaPesach be'echad. You cannot do this all by yourself. You must do it in society, in group. Even if you do every detail correctly, if you perform the Passover sacrifice all by your lonesome, that's not the way this has to be. This has to be in group, in neighbors, in family.
Yeah, as you
It
say
reminds
that,
me of the great passage in the Haggadah, where even the wise person has to say out loud the story, because it's that important to give voice to it and not just let it remain inside of your head.
I was just recalling, as you were mentioning, the solitary, aspect of it. It's already 5 years since the pandemic, that is so unbelievable. 6 years even.
6 years.
6 years. And do you remember that Pesach? We were all in a real crisis as to what to do. How are we going to have Pesach? And of course, many people, opted for Zoom and made Zoom seders, and to the extent that could be satisfying, it was. Some of us, we created bubbles or whatever we called it, and then of course there were people that were by themselves, and as I think about it now, I can't think of it. It was so extraordinarily sad and so painful to observe Pesach by yourself. And what in what way could we compensate that? And that became a real question at the time.
What's interesting to me is that Pesach is one of the few holidays where it's practically unheard of to just have your family.
Yeah.
And that year of 2020, that was a requirement that you could not really have more than your family.
Right.
And, that creates a lot of tension
Sure.
because there's no, sometimes the guests provide buffer and now there's no buffer.
All right. Let's look at a couple of things in this. At the beginning of the Perek, chapter 12, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aaron. God is speaking to Moses and Aaron, Be'eretz Mitzrayim Lemor, in the land of Egypt, saying. And so, the formula of God speaking to Moses and Aaron, I want you to talk about that for a second. And we had an opportunity to look at some of the Midrashim there, especially in the Mechilta rabbinic compilation, early rabbinic compilation of interpretation. And just want to go into this idea that here they are, Moses and Aaron, and they are presenting the commandment. God is speaking to them, and He says, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodeshim. This is your first month. So pick any part of that and talk about it. Go ahead, Rabbi Kalmanofsky.
Wait, we're talking about the time, the Chodesh Hazeh Lachem?
You can talk about the time or
Whatever
talk
you
about
want.
Moses and Aaron.
Verse 1 or verse 2?
Verse 1.
HaChodesh Hazeh is verse 2.
2, right. So talk about Moses and Aaron and their...
Well, Moses and Aaron, I don't know if you guys said this. I mean, this is just Elliot Malamit's wonderful comment that the story of Breshit is about the brothers who stories about brothers who rival each other, who hate each other, who do violence with each other. And when I was just looking up in my online concordance here, the first time that the name Aaron appears, Moses is weaseling out. He doesn't want to do it. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. Burning bush episode, and God, I'm not up to the task. Yeah, I really think you are. Ask somebody else. No, I'm asking you. And then Vayichar Adonai b'Moshe, and God finally gets irked. Vayomer Halo Aharon Achicha Halevi. Your brother Levite Aaron, which we take to mean, and the Torah elsewhere is quite clear that they are biological siblings, although that verse sounds like your brother Aaron the Levite means your fellow Levite, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Yadati ki daber daberhu, he's really good at speaking. V'gam hu yotzei likratecha, he'll go meet you, v'ra'acha v'samach b'libo, and he'll see you and he'll be glad. And we have, generally speaking, and so Elliot has observed in the past that after all of that rivalry from Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, to Jacob and Esau, to Joseph and the brothers, everybody is in, their relationships are disastrous. Aaron comes out and he says, Aaron's going to come see you and he's going to be glad to see you and you're going to be partners. And the implication is, as you've said in the past, is you're going to be partners and each of you has your talents and each of your talents are valued. Moses, we have this relationship. You're a fine teacher. You tell me you don't speak well. It's fine. I know you don't speak well. Aaron speaks well. And so the two of you can be a team. And so the leadership in a verse like this, which it is not common, there are not many times, there's a handful of times where it's directly, and God spoke to Aaron saying, I think, what did we say, that there are 3? I didn't look it up exactly.
Yeah,
but
that's what the Midrash says.
They're not a lot. So sometimes there are, but for the most part, the communication is God to Moses. But in this case, the way rabbinic reading has read this expansively to say something like, you guys are partners. You don't have to do this all alone. We're going to make use of your talents. We're going to make use of Aaron's talents. And that to me is just like such a life-affirming comment about Am Yisrael. And everybody's got a role, and every role matters. It's a team sport. This is not tennis. This is football.
Is doubles tennis. Yeah, I would just say what has been really animating my thinking about this, which is that there is an emotional texture to the pairing of Moses and Aaron that makes, both indispensable and complementary to the other. And this is so enriching as a story, because while Moses is often very solitary, he will be the one that goes up the mountain in a couple of weeks. He is the one that is at the burning bush. He has many things that he will have to do as a single individual. He is there's an aspect of his character that is broadened because of this unique sibling partnership with his brother. And it's almost as if we can say we can't really imagine Moses without Aaron,
So,
and I would say, this falls in line with classic, duos, duets. The same way that we can't imagine Simon without Garfunkel, we can't imagine Kirk without Spock, we can't imagine, Sonny without Cher, we can't imagine Dean Martin without Jerry
Element without
Lewis.
Chesler and Kalmanofsky.
Exactly. No, we're a trio, but the point is that from the point of view of the audience, there's an emotional richness that we have. I mentioned, that I love the fact that the shul can look to me and to the chazan and see that there's a bit of a psychodrama playing out on the bima, because you have an emotional life and, more or less an intellectual life, but they're coming, we both complement each other, as do most chazanim and rabbis, unless, of course, they break into fist fights on the bima, which has happened. It has happened.
Not to me, because I
No, not to me.
have a wonderful cousin, but there's no way she could take me.
No. I have heard of that. I have heard, oh my God, there really are stories like this. But anyway, so they both they intersect in terms of, what demands they make of the people, and they complement each other, and of course they irritate each other. So,
Well, but I think one of the things that struck me listening to you is that they also both represent two different dimensions and two different avenues to holiness, because Aaron is the priest and Moses is the prophet. And the tension between the priest and prophet is going to carry itself down until throughout the Bible, and in a certain sense until the destruction of the temple. And I think that here, what we're seeing in the Pashat shot of the verse is that the priest and the prophet are equal. And one of the things I was thinking when you were talking earlier, that certainly they're partners, but are they equal partners? I think everyone can understand that whatever Aaron's relative status to Moses, he's certainly indispensable, but that doesn't make him equal necessarily.
so let me do
But
this
here, let me
experiment.
just finish
Yeah.
but here I think the intent is to make him equal, because you need both the priest and the prophet.
So I would say about this that of course what you're saying is quite correct, especially as rabbinic tradition, which is fundamental in intellectual discursive study tradition. Moshe is first among equals. Otherwise, v'lo kamod Yisrael navi Moshe. There's never another prophet like him. But indispensable is a really good word, because they balance each other out. There's who is the king at the end of the histories who, at a certain point, it says Achaz, who decides, that's it, I'm going into the Beit HaMikdash to offer incense. And he's stricken with leprosy for the rest of his life, because and he's a good king, he's not a bad king, but he usurped on a prerogative that is for the priests. And, the sages, I mean, this is not explicit in the Torah, I don't think, but that in the 7 days of the dedication of the Mishkan and the Mizbeach, the tabernacle and the altar, before Aaron, Biyom Hashmini, when Aaron and his sons, mostly successfully, in some ways unsuccessfully, get dedicated as priests, it says Moshe Haya Mishamesh Kohen Gadol. Not in the Torah, the rabbis say Moses served as the Kohen Gadol for those first 7 days, and then ceded the role to Aaron. So that, to me, is again a very affirmative promise that, unlike certain politicians who think that everything is it's all about me, and there's a pathological narcissism to certain kind of leaders that it's all about me and I'm the only one and only I can, and that's true in the country where we live and that other country that we love. Um, that's actually not the portrayal that Jewish tradition has of this relationship, in which Moshe says, it's more of a the kara ze el zevi amar kind of moment. Please participate in this with me.
I wonder if they're speaking together in unison, or if they have their own kind of followings, and if there are people that, or if it is in fact the way the Torah describes it, which is God speaks to Moses, and Moses speaks to Aaron, and Aaron speaks to the people, so that Aaron is the one who is beloved by the people, and evidently has a stronger command of elocution and words. Moses, when Moses says "Ki chvad peh," I am heavy of speech or heavy of mouth, arel sfatayim, I am uncircumcised of lips. We don't really know what those terms mean, if they refer to a physical impediment or a kind of hesitation or some other kind of speech defect, or maybe it's just he doesn't like to speak in public. I don't know how he could be much of a leader if he doesn't have the ability to speak, but clearly Aaron is the one that's designated to be that, and maybe Aaron's presentation of the commandments are acceptable to people.
There's another way in which this is true in the emotional dimension. In Tractate Sanhedrin, there's a depiction of the two of them and their characteristics. This is well known, and this is like in the top 10 greatest rabbinic hits. Moses says, "Yikov hadin et hahar." Moses says, "Let the law pierce the mountain." The law is what the law is. Do not cut any corners. Do not lie. We demand strict adherence to the law. And Aaron is Ohev Shalom, Rodef Shalom. He is a pursuer of peace. So when people would quarrel, he would tell white lies. Your friend told me that he really wants to make up and he feels terrible. And he would tell the same thing to the other guy. And he used the messy dimensions of human relationships to create more shalom, even when it wasn't honest. So I think in Judaism, perhaps the polarity that we're talking about, the polarity of different styles of leadership, it may be priest and prophet, it may be hierarchical and common man, it may be esoteric and more among people, but maybe part of it is also let the law pierce the mountain. This is rigidity. It doesn't matter what you individual think. This is the rule. Versus somebody who said, all right, let's just take a chill pill on that one for a moment, and if we have to tell a white lie so we can get along together and love each other, that's nice too.
Right. What I would add is that there seems to be a great gap of emotional valence. That Aaron is depicted as having a degree of intimacy and intimate relations, and Moses, his most intimate relation is with God, and most of his interactions with people, he kind of maintains his distance, and that also can be a great problem. But it could be that that's the price that you pay for leadership, that what you give up is the people connection ultimately in order to be an effective leader. And Aaron, although I assume he was a great priest, is much more the people person than I think Moses was.
Moses, because of his intimate connection with God, ends up having to wear a veil to keep himself apart from the people who can't deal. And Aaron wears the names of the tribes on his shoulder and his heart.
So he's one of the people.
Yeah, exactly. He's the apotheosis of the people, and Moshe is the apotheosis of the divine Israelite, divine, up the Mount Sinai connection.
We're almost out of time here, but we can't make reference to this parsha without, I guess, the climactic moment of the whole Exodus story. Vayihi b'chatzi halayla. It was in the middle of the night. V'Adonai hika kol bechor be'eretz Yisrael, and God smote all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt. B'chor paro hayoshev al kiso, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that was sitting on his seat, his throne, ad bechor hashvi, to the firstborn in captivity, asher bebeit habor, that was in the pit, in the dungeon, b'chol b'chol and all firstborn of the animals. And then it just advanced to verse 30, Vatihi tza'aka gedola b'mitzrayim. There's a great scream in Egypt, ki ein bayit asher ein sham met. There was not a household in which there was not a dead body. You know, just saying that verse gives me chills, and I, it's a horrifying thought. It's a terrifying thought, and this is what's happening to the Egyptians. The full might of the divine plague at this moment, and that's the thing that that really tips Pharaoh and Pharaoh says to Moses, "Get out of here. L'chu ivdu et Adonai kedaberchem kumu tzu'u mitoch ami." Get up, get out from my people, and so this. I can't help but feel. Are we meant to feel a little pathos for Pharaoh in this moment, or are we meant to say, "You deserve everything"?
So, it's an interesting question that you put. So I would say, first of all, definitely we're supposed to have feelings of empathy for the Egyptian people. The question about Pharaoh is interesting, and I think what ultimately leads me to think even Pharaoh deserves some empathy is that he too loses a child. And I remember reading many, many years ago that General Eisenhower is one of the great generals in American history and sent thousands of people to their death as a war leader, said the worst thing that ever happened to him is when he buried an infant child.
Yeah.
And, it's not something that one gets over. And I think that it doesn't matter whether the person is your friend or your enemy. We can all relate to the tragedy of losing a child.
Isn't it interesting that in this moment where you want to sense the complete and total vindication of Pharaoh or God and the people, that we are reminded of our humanity here. Kumu tsu'u mitoch ami. This is the first time he's really kind of making reference to his people, and that and his own humanity. I do wonder. I have to check that. That we've been setting up a dichotomy between Pharaoh and God, and Moses and Pharaoh, and Egypt and Israel, and here is a moment of humanity for him, I think, and then he says, "Uverachtem gamoti, bless me." I always find that to be such a puzzle. I want a blessing from you, and Moses it doesn't tell us what Moses says to him. I think Moses has 6 words for him, but we won't go into that.
It's as good a place as any to end.
I think so. All right. Well, we want to thank our viewers, our listeners, for watching and listening to us. Again, our comfort to our good friend, Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanofsky, and the family, everybody. May your father's memory be a blessing, be bound in the bond of life. And we are wishing everyone a good Shabbos, and hope you enjoy Parashat Bo. We're going to get a big snowstorm here in the Northeast this weekend, and many people throughout the United States are going to get whopped. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Enjoy the snow. We'll see you all on the next edition of Parasha Talk. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.